Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and today I would like to share with you a very interesting game played by Stanishevsky and Nikonov. The game was played in 1981 in Moscow. Stanishevsky had white pieces and he started with e4, c5 by Nikonov, Sicilian defense, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, white goes for Nezhmetdinov-Rossolimo attack e6, bishop takes c6, b takes c6, d3, g6, white castles kingside, bishop g7, e5. Immediately the pawn on e5 square is taking under control these dark squares. Knight e7, not a good move. It was better to play f6 straight away and get rid of this strong pawn on e5. If bishop f4, then black can capture on e5, and after the exchange on e5, play for example knight f6. But instead after e5 we see knight e7, and now this pawn can cause black a lot of problems. Here comes knight c3. White has a simple plan to bring the knight on e4 square, from where it can both attack the pawn on c5 or jump on d6 or f6 squares. Black castles kingside, knight e4, already the pawn on c5 square is under attack, and d5. Well, if a move like queen b6 protecting the pawn, then white can play bishop e3, intensify the pressure on c5. That's why after knight e4 black played d5 and gave away the pawn on c5, and now white is simply capturing on c5, knight f5, d4, strengthening both the pawn and also the knight on e5 and c5s. Rook b8, bishop g5, white develops the bishop with a tempo, queen c7, b3, rook b6 and king h1. By playing king h1, white is intending to bring the rook on g1 square and start an advancement on the king side. a5, queen d2, bishop a6, rook g1, h6 and bishop f6, offering an exchange of dark square bishops in order to weaken black's king side. Bishop takes f6, e takes f6, king h7. Already white is threatening to play g4 and then capture on h6. That's why king h7 was played. g4, knight d6, rook e1, bishop b5, queen f4, queen d8, and a strange move by Stanishevsky, rook e3. Well, it's not quite clear why not rook g3 with the idea of playing rook h3, and black is facing serious problems. It's not quite clear how is black going to defend his position. Instead we see rook e3, again with the same idea of bringing the rook on h3 square, but still the knight is blocking the rook's path. Knight e8, black wants to get rid of this pawn on f6 square, and in this position Stanishevsky came up with a very beautiful idea. Can you find his next move? Ready? He played knight d7. White is sacrificing the knight, at the same time is protecting the pawn on f6 and is forking both rooks. Queen takes d7. Now the knight jumps on e5 square with a tempo, at the same time opening up the rook's path. Queen d8, but instead of playing rook h3, we see knight d7. White is sacrificing the second knight as well in order to lure away the queen and only then play rook h3. But it turns out that actually this is an inaccuracy. It was better to play rook h3 straight away. If h5, then g takes h5, if g5, then rook takes g5, if queen takes f6, then queen e3, and then after rook g8 white can play rook g6. This is going to be winning. The threat is queen h6 checkmate. If f takes g6, then h takes g6, discover check, and then black king is getting checkmated. But after queen d8 we see knight d7. Queen takes d7. Well, it was better to play rook h8 and give up the rook on b6 square, and if rook h3, play king g8. But instead after knight d7 we see queen takes d7, rook h3, h5, g takes h5, g5, queen takes g5 and queen d8. Again, black wants to get rid of this pawn on f6, but it turns out that instead of playing queen d8, bishop f1 was stronger, a very beautiful move suggested by the engine. The idea is that if rook takes f1, then already black can play rook g8, kick away the queen from g5 square and then capture on f6. Instead, after queen takes g5, we see queen d8. Here comes h6. Already white is creating a very dangerous threat. Queen G7 check. Queen takes f6. Again, it was not too late to play bishop f1 with the same idea. If rook takes f1, then rook g8. Instead, after h6, queen takes f6 was played. Here comes queen g7 check. White has already sacrificed 2 knights. This time we see queen sacrifice on the board. Knight takes g7, h takes g7, discover check. Queen h6. Now look, both rook takes h6, also capturing on f8 and promoting the pawn to a queen, are winning. But in this position, Stanishevsky found a very beautiful line. He captured on f8 and promoted the pawn to a knight. A very beautiful move. And after king h8, we see rook takes h6, and this is a checkmate. A very beautiful game, I think, though there were many inaccuracies by both sides, but of course the game was full of sacrifices and a dangerous attack, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave your comments. Good luck.